Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's very nice to be out here on a rainy day in Newport. I thank you all for coming out. My name's John Loughlin, and I'm running for Congress here in Rhode Island. Lewis mentioned earlier that I'm the House Minority Whip in Rhode Island. And before you think that that's a big deal, it's a little bit like being Vice Admiral of a canoe. We have 6 members in the Rhode Island House, 6 Republican members out of 75. The whip's job, the primary job of the whip is to count. So the caucus looked around and they said, we finally found a job Loughlin can handle. Well, I'm very pleased to be here today, and I want to back up a little bit to February of 2003. And I'm going to get a little parochial here, so I apologize for all of you who come from out of state. In February of 2003, I was entering my 2nd month on active duty at Fort Bragg. My job at Fort Bragg as a lieutenant colonel was to build a team to train units to be able to work together in this thing that was coming up that we thought was going to be the Iraqi war. And a news story from back home flashed across the television screen. And that news story was a tragic fire that happened in West Warwick. We lost 100 people in a station nightclub fire. And as I sat there in the ready room at Fort Bragg watching CNN, I saw a wonderful man get up there, a tremendous leader who literally took the pulse of this issue, took charge of this issue, and led our state through a very, very difficult time. And that man's name is Don Kucheri. And I was very touched, particularly by the way the national news media pronounced your name, Governor. It was Carcieri, but it's Kucheri, just so you know. And I was sitting there in the ready room, and I knew that active duty would be coming to an end at some point, and I knew my military career was coming to an end, and I said, there's a guy who needs some backup. There's a guy who needs someone to come and step up and serve. And so in 2004, I ran for the Rhode Island General Assembly, and Don Kucheri was tremendously supportive. And I literally would not be standing before you today if it weren't him. So a round of applause for Governor Don Kucheri. Well, after a few terms in the Rhode Island General Assembly, I decided that we have some big problems here in the state of Rhode Island. And we have a congressman in the 1st Congressional District who has become completely and totally unresponsive. He's isolated himself in a bubble. I don't know if you've heard of him. His last name is Kennedy. You may not have heard of him, but I'll tell you about him. He's isolated himself from his constituents, and he's basically hiding from the voters of the 1st Congressional District. You saw recently during the August recess town hall meetings all across the country where congressmen and senators stood up before their constituents, in some cases very angry constituents, and answered questions from the voters. And in Rhode Island, it was no different. In Rhode Island, Congressman Langevin, Senator Whitehouse, and Senator Reed held town hall meetings, somewhat smaller, controlled affairs, but town hall meetings nonetheless, and they took the flag. Congressman Kennedy didn't do that. He held a fundraiser at McCoy Stadium during the August parade. He had a tragedy in his family, and we understand that. We certainly give him time to deal with that. And then he held a fundraiser in Alabama, and he traveled down to Mobile, Alabama to bring jobs to Mobile, which I thought was awfully noble of him. And then he came back to Rhode Island, and he decided, I'm going to have a town hall meeting. So his town hall meeting was held at the Marriott on the 26th of September, and it was by invitation only. So in other words, if you didn't get an invitation to this town hall meeting, he didn't want to hear from you. He spoke, I guess, for about 20 minutes or so. He spoke for about 20 minutes. He answered questions that were written down on cards and submitted to him in advance so he would know what the answer was. I guess you flip the card over and it's got the answer. And that was the extent of his town hall meeting. So the Loughlin for Congress campaign decided that the voters of the 1st Congressional District needed a voice. So we held a town hall meeting. And we held a town hall meeting. It happened last Wednesday. We had about 150 folks. We opened it to the general public. We invited Ocean State Action, which is a fairly liberal group. We invited anyone and everyone who wanted to come and voice their concerns about health care. And you know what struck me? There was no angry mobs. There were no signs. Oh, I take that back. There was one sign that said, "Recycle Congress." And I'm not quite sure what you would recycle them into, but there was a Recycle Congress sign. But it basically was constituents, voters, ordinary folks in the 1st Congressional District that wanted to be heard. And so we stood there for about 2.5 hours. We had a panel of experts and we took questions, and hopefully we answered some questions, but we also provided a service. Because we know it's so difficult with all the fundraising and Larry King appearances that Congressman Kennedy has to do, we videotaped the event, created a DVD, and we've mailed it to the Congressman. So we popped it in the mail to him. Hopefully he can pop it in his DVD player and at his leisure maybe take a look and see what his constituents actually think. Now, oddly enough, there was some reaction from the Democratic Party, from the establishment of the Democratic Party, and I brought that reaction with me, and I think I'd like to share it with you if I can. Forgive me a second, I got to put glasses on. It's kind of a after 40 thing. This is a statement that's on Democratic Party letterhead, and it's a statement from Democratic Party Chairman Bill Lynch, and this is what he thinks of voters actually being heard. I'm disappointed that John Loughlin has so quickly decided to take the low road. Even though he's not a formally declared candidate yet, he's already had to resort to cheap potshots that are as inaccurate as they are desperate. Just this week, Congressman Kennedy, and he spelled it wrong, by the way. Kennedy spelled wrong. Offered successful amendments to the Advanced Vehicle Technology Act, which recently passed the House. They will not only promote increased fuel efficiency standards, but also put more Rhode Islanders to work in the growing field of green technology. Many of you, I'm sure, passed the Oldsmobile plant in Newport that we have here that's producing green cars. I missed it, unfortunately, on my way in. It's one thing to talk about job creation, it's a whole other thing to do the work to actually make it happen. And the results, of course, are self-evident here in Rhode Island with our 12.8% unemployment rate. And that's what Congressman Kennedy is doing. I would respectfully suggest that Patrick Kennedy accomplished more for his constituents last week than John Loughlin has been able to do in 5 years at the State House. And I also want to thank Chairman Lynch for pointing out that I spent 5 years in the State House. That was awfully nice of him. But the broader point is, one of the first rules of politics is you never mention your opponent. You ignore your opponent. And I know that, and I'm sure we see it all the time, we look at this big Democratic machine and we think, boy, these guys really know what they're doing. These guys are pros. They're not. They're morons. I mean, that's... Not for nothing, Chairman Lynch, but that's politics 101. Never mention your opponent, but I thank you very much for actually mentioning it. And speaking of mentioning, I do want to point out, too, that we also have with us in Rhode Island a candidate for the Rhode Island Attorney General's office, a great man, an Air Force veteran, and that's Eric Wallen. Eric, would you please stand up? Eric is going to be our next Attorney General, and he is just an absolutely fine man and is going to do a great job for us in Rhode Island. My name is John Loughlin. I'm running for Congress. Thank you very much.